Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. First Russian oil, then H-1B visas, and now Donald Trump has found a new issue to attack India. Rice exports. He is threatening to slap a tariff on rice. What triggered this and who stands to lose? We'll bring you the full story. Meanwhile, his trade war is clearly failing. Despite the tariffs, China has broken export records. Its surplus has crossed $1 trillion. Also, an update on the Indigo crisis. They say operations are normal, but 400 flights were cancelled today. Also in focus tonight, what Pakistan's Chief of Defence Force Asim Munir has said to India. Why Chinese jets are buzzing over South Korean airspace. What Ukraine says about giving up land to Russia. A special report on India's creator economy. Who is making the real money here? The inside story of Paramount's hostile bid for Warner Brothers. And our smart watches and smart rings making you more anxious. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Microsoft to invest $17.5 billion in India to help build the country's artificial intelligence infrastructure. CEO Satya Nadella made the announcement after meeting Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi. This is Microsoft's largest investment ever in Asia. Prime Minister Modi says when it comes to AI, the world is optimistic about India. Fighting between Thailand and Cambodia spreads to new parts of their contested border. At least 10 soldiers and civilians have been killed on both sides. The new hostilities have also led to a mass exodus of civilians from the frontier. The US, which brokered a truce in July, has called for an immediate end to the clashes. A fire ripped through an office building in Indonesia's capital, Jakarta. At least 22 people have been killed in the tragedy. Police say a drone battery which exploded on the ground floor of the 7-story building could have started the fire. The incident took place in a busy area of the city centre. Australia enacts the world's first ban on social media for those under 16 years of age. The aim is to prevent children from addictive digital scrolling. Apps and websites will face millions of dollars in fine if they fail to purge Australia-based users younger than 16. And Mohamed Salah reports for Liverpool training amid doubts over his future at the Premier League club. Salah was left out of Liverpool's squad for the Champions League tie today. The snub came after the star striker criticised Liverpool's manager for benching him in recent games. Donald Trump is waving his tariff wand and once again he is pointing at India. I know what you're thinking. What is left to tariff now? He's hit Indian machinery, he's hit Indian steel, he's hit Indian workers. What more can he possibly tariff? Well, the US president's new target is Indian rice, and it's hilarious how he arrived at this decision. Yesterday, Trump hosted a roundtable on US farming. Among the participants was a rice mill owner from Louisiana. She complained that some countries were dumping rice in America. Now, dumping is a trade term. It means that goods are being sold below the market rate. The idea is to sell for cheap and get more buyers. That is dumping. Now, this woman said that some countries were dumping rice in America, and the complaint led to an interesting exchange. Listen to this.
We do believe that countries are dumping rice into this country today. We've never seen imports this great.
Which countries?
India, Thailand, even China into Puerto Rico.
Tell me about India. Why is India allowed to do that? They have to pay tariffs. Do they have an exemption on rice?
No, sir. We're still working on their trade deal. So
yeah, but they should be dumping. I mean, I heard that from others. So you can't do that.
There's a
Okay.
WTO case against India
Give me
right
the
now.
give me the countries if you could. Go ahead. India. Who else?
So
Mark it
India,
down. What's your skin?
Yes, sir.
India, Thailand, China into Puerto Rico, not into the continental U.S., but into Puerto Rico.
You can't make this up. The mill owner randomly rattles out names of countries, and the US President Donald Trump on the spot threatens to tariff them. Meanwhile, look at the Treasury Secretary. He's writing down the names of those countries on a piece of paper. You think policy making is hard? Not in the Trump White House. I've seen more consultations for a school project. But process aside, let's look at the tariff threat. Who will it hurt? Indian farmers or American consumers? The numbers have the answer. India is the biggest rice producer in the world. It produces around 150 million tons of rice. Most of this is consumed at home. But around 23 million tons of rice is exported. India sells this to 172 countries, and this makes India the biggest rice exporter in the world. Now we come to the US. The US imports around 1.3 million tons of rice, mostly the aromatic kind from Asia, and 26% of America's imports, rice imports, come from India, 26%. Meaning there is a level of US dependence on India. On the flip side, the US makes up just 3% of India's rice exports. In terms of value, that's around $400 million. Now look at those numbers closely again. What is easier to replace? 26% of your rice imports or 3% of your rice exports? The fact is, India can easily sell this rice elsewhere, maybe even at home. But in the US, the buyers will feel the pinch. Their rice will become more expensive. So why is Donald Trump doing it? Well, simply put, this is to appease American farmers. They have been hit hard by the president's policies. First, he imposed the tariffs. Countries like China used to buy farm goods from the US, but after Trump's tariffs, they stopped buying from US farmers. They turned to other countries like Argentina and Brazil. These same tariffs have also made inputs more expensive. Say you import tractors or you import fertilizers. Those items are more expensive because of Trump's tariffs. Then Trump launched the immigration crackdown. Farmers say they are unable to find cheaper labor, so their losses are mounting. American farmers are projected to lose up to $43 billion this season. And this is bad news for Donald Trump because farmers are a key vote bank for him. So the US president is now rolling out a new program for them. He is handing out $12 billion in aid to American farmers.
I'm delighted to announce this afternoon that the United States will be taking a small portion of the hundreds of billions of dollars we receive in tariffs. We are making a lot of money from countries that took advantage of us for years. They took advantage of us like nobody's ever seen. So what we're doing is we're taking a relatively small portion of that, and we're going to be giving and providing it to the farmers in economic assistance. And we love our farmers, and as you know, the farmers like me because based on voting trends, you could call it voting trends or anything else, but they're great people. They're the backbone of our country. So we're going to use that money to provide $12 billion in economic assistance to American farmers.
Again, you can't make this up. You impose the tariffs, you trigger the losses, and then you use the tariff revenue to level those losses. This is a masterclass in policy making. But Trump's troubles do not end here. His tariffs are not just hurting American farmers, they're also hurting ordinary consumers. So his solution? An affordability tour. President Donald Trump is slated to address a rally in Pennsylvania today. His message is expected to be simple, that prices are coming down in America. That's what he will say. Just one problem though, they're not. Prices are not coming down in America. Affordability is a big issue, and Trump's tariffs are making it worse. Around 40% of Americans say that their economic condition is poor. Last month, 37% said this. So more people now believe that they're doing poorly. In the month of October, US inflation hit 3%. That too for the first time since January this year. If you put all of this together, if you join the dots, this is what you see. Donald Trump is struggling. His huge bet on tariffs has backfired spectacularly, so now he's scrambling for a response. As for India, the challenge is clear. A US trade team is expected to visit New Delhi tomorrow, but Trump is not making their job easier. He keeps adding new issues to the negotiations. First, it was Indian H-1B visas, then it was Russian oil, now it is Indian rice. When you add more issues, the talks become more complicated, and we've seen that over the last few months. We keep hearing that a deal is near, but in the end, nothing happens. Let's see if this delegation becomes more of the same. When Trump took office, he set out to change global trade. He slapped tariffs left, right, and center. He thought he could dictate terms. But then reality caught up and the numbers refused to cooperate. The trade war is not working, certainly not for Trump's America. But guess who is winning it? China. Chinese exports have shattered records. The latest data is out. It shows China has a trade surplus of over $1 trillion. $1 trillion. This has never happened before. And the year is not even over yet. This data covers just 11 months, January to November. So by the end of 2025, China could end up with an even bigger number because they're selling more than ever. And they're selling more despite the trade barriers. Trump has slapped tariffs on them. Exports to the US are down by 29%. Europe and Japan have imposed restrictions. Even developing countries are tightening rules on Chinese goods. And yet, Chinese exports are breaking records. How are they doing it? What is driving this export boom? Well, one big reason is China's own economy. Inside China, spending is down. People are saving more, the economy is slowing down, job creation is stagnating, the property market is still in crisis, developers are struggling with debt. So people aren't buying enough. Fewer goods are selling at home. What does China do with the rest? It exports them. It dumps the surplus in global markets. And the result is an export surge. That is the first factor. That is why exports are booming. The second factor is price. From cars to chemicals, from machinery to electronics, China has been undercutting the world. They offer cheaper goods, so they sell more. Plus, the Chinese currency is weak. That's the renminbi, their currency. It has remained weak for years. And that gives China a big pricing advantage. Some reports say the renminbi is undervalued by nearly 30% against the euro. And a weaker currency helps Chinese exports. It makes them cheaper overseas. That keeps the demand high even during a trade war. That is how China is selling more to the world. And what are they selling? Well, they're selling pretty much everything, but the biggest jump in sales is from cars. And we're not talking about EVs, not electric vehicles. We are talking about petrol cars. China is exporting them. It is exporting petrol cars at record numbers. In 2020, they exported just over 1 million petrol cars, but this year, 2025, they've already sold the world 4.3 million cars. That's a 4-fold increase in just 5 years. And who's buying these cars? The developing world, countries in Latin America, Southeast Asia, Africa. China has also received more orders from West Asia and Eastern Europe. This is boosting export numbers. Plus, Beijing has found new ways around the trade restrictions. In some cases, it sells semi-finished products. The final assembly is shifted to another factory in another country. In regions like Southeast Asia, in Mexico, even in Africa. China sends the products to these countries, unfinished products. They are finished in these factories, and then they're shipped all over the world, including to the US. So these goods avoid direct tariffs, but they're still very much Chinese. Long story short, despite Trump's efforts, Beijing's dominance on global trade remains intact. But India is a different story. India has been trying to wean itself off Chinese goods. The effort began after the border clash in 2020. India ran campaigns to buy local, but those campaigns are yet to deliver because India's trade with China is more lopsided than ever. Again, look at the numbers from 2024-25. Imports from China crossed $113 billion. And exports to China, just a little over $14 billion. Now do the math. The India-China trade gap is almost $100 billion. That's the biggest trade deficit India has ever had with any country. If New Delhi wants to fix this gap, it must learn from Trump's failure. Trade barriers alone won't work. What India needs is creative policy making and stronger industries at home. India should be able to make products that can compete globally. Because China is not just ahead, it is pulling further away, and at this rate, the gap will be very hard to close.
Indigo is back on its feet and our operations are stable.
Attention all passengers on flight.
It's day 8 of the Indigo crisis. Things are slowly stabilizing at airports, yet there's a lot of confusion. Indigo says its operations have normalized, but even today they cancelled more than 400 flights. So what's the deal here? Is the crisis over or is it not? Let's look at the numbers. Indigo flies around 2,300 flights every day. On Friday, 1,000 of these flights were cancelled. On Saturday, 850 flights were cancelled. On Sunday, 650 flights. On Monday, 500. And today, at least 420 flights were cancelled. But Indigo's CEO says the carrier is back on its feet. He says they're flying to all 138 destinations.
Today, I'm here to share that your airline, Indigo, is back on its feet and our operations are stable. We've let you down when a major operational disruption happened, and we're sorry for that. As of yesterday, we are back of flying to all our 138 destinations in our network, and our on-time performance has also been normalized. Earlier, we had indicated to normalize between the 10th and the 15th of December. I can confirm now that today, as of December 9th, our operations are fully stabilized.
Well, here's what that means. If your flight is published on Indigo's website, it will fly. No delays, no cancellations. But it doesn't mean that the carrier is back to full capacity. Like I said, Indigo usually flies around 2,300 flights in a day. They're still far away from that target. Tomorrow, they're expected to fly around 1,900 flights, meaning things are stable, but not normal. And what about the passengers? Well, we're not seeing big crowds like last week, but at bigger airports, some passengers still remain stranded. Take a look. The government is also keeping a close watch. The Civil Aviation Minister gave his assessment in Parliament again. He promised strict action against Indigo.
DGCA has issued show-cause notices to Indigo's senior leadership and commenced a detailed enforcement investigation. Depending on the outcome, strict and appropriate action, as empowered under the Aircraft Rules and Act, will be taken. No airline, however large, will be permitted to cause such hardship to passengers through planning failures, non-compliance, or non-adherence to statutory provisions.
We're seeing some moves already. Today, the Indigo CEO was summoned by the Aviation Ministry. He was asked to provide an update on the situation. Indigo says all refunds until December 6th have been completed. The rest are being expedited. But a mistake of this scale cannot go unpunished. So today, the ministry cracked the whip. They have asked Indigo to cut its schedule by 10%. Now, the schedule is basically the number of flights. If you operate 100 flights, your schedule is 100. Indigo must slash around 10% of their flights. That's around 200 flights per day. And this is not just about the last 1 week. Look at the whole of November. Indigo was permitted to fly more than 64,300 flights through the month. Out of these, more than 950 flights were cancelled. So the government now says Indigo has not demonstrated efficiency. Therefore, 10% of their flights have been trimmed. That too on high demand routes. It's a start, but it won't be enough. The government has two priorities right now. One, to resolve the current crisis, basically ensure that operations are back to normal, ensure all the refunds are processed, and ensure all the baggage is returned. This is the first and foremost priority. Secondly, there must be a thorough investigation because clearly something major went wrong. Initially, this crisis was blamed on new crew regulations, but turns out that's just half the story. Indigo was only short of 120 odd pilots. They are blaming everything from technical glitches to adverse weather. So only a full investigation can get to the bottom of this. As for Indigo, the real challenge begins now. They have dominated Indian skies for more than a decade. They have earned goodwill and trust. But all that went down the drain last week. It's up to the company to win it back. And frankly, they missed an opportunity in the last few days. I'm sure you saw pictures from the airports. Angry passengers demanded answers from the airline staff. Some were abused, some were harassed. But the truth is, it was beyond their control. The employees at the gate are not responsible for this crisis, nor do they have the power to resolve it. Guess who does? The senior leadership. We haven't seen any of them hit the ground. We've seen full-page ads in newspapers. We've seen video messages from their office. But why not deploy executives to airports? Why not talk to passengers and address their concerns? That is where Indigo missed a trick. During such times, you're not just judged for your logistics or problem solving, you are judged for your empathy. And we saw none from Indigo this week. Kim Jong-un can celebrate because there's a new supreme leader in his club, Asim Munir of Pakistan. His career progression will make you jealous. Corps Commander in 2019, Army Chief in 2022, Field Marshal in 2025, and Supreme Military Commander also in 2025. Do you know when this happens? When you don't just work for a company, you own it. And that's Asim Munir. He is the de facto king of Pakistan. Last week, he took over as the Chief of Defense Forces, sort of like a tri-service chief. He will command the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. And fun fact, he will also be Army Chief. That's two hats for Munir. Chief of Army and Chief of Defense Forces, CDF. Why two hats? Because who cares? The Pakistani government passed a constitutional amendment last month. It formalized what was already known, that Asim Munir rules Pakistan. He took over as Supreme Commander last week, and yesterday he gave his maiden speech. Frankly, ChatGPT could have written it. That's how predictable it was. Munir went on a rant against India. Let me quote from what he said. India should not be a victim of any self-deception or assumption. Next time, Pakistan's response will be even swifter and more severe. Talk about peak delusion. Because forget a response. Back in May, Pakistan did not even know what hit them. They simply woke up to cratered runways and destroyed hangars. Munir got his first promotion for that brilliant loss. Now he's got his second. The Supreme Commander also had a message for his other brother. That's the Taliban regime in Afghanistan. Again, let me quote from what he said. A clear message has been given to the Taliban regime that it has no choice but to choose between the TTP and Pakistan. The TTP is the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. Islamabad says Kabul is shielding this group. This is basically the Pakistani Taliban, the TTP. Kabul says it is Pakistan's internal matter. So Asim Munir has issued an ultimatum. You choose us or the TTP. As far as choices go, that's a tough one. One side is radical and rogue. It carries out terror attacks on innocents. It has no money, no organization, and no future. On the other side is the TTP. The fact is, Munir's problems go beyond terror. Politically, his position is not secure yet. He faces an unyielding opponent in former Prime Minister Imran Khan. Yes, his party has been defanged, Imran Khan's party, but his supporters hold considerable influence. And we saw that last week. Rumors spread that Imran Khan had died in prison, and on cue, massive protests broke out in Pakistan. They managed to paralyze major Pakistani cities. Interestingly, the Indian Foreign Ministry was asked about this turn of events. Listen to their response.
देखिए, पाकिस्तान में जो भी घटनाएं होती है उस पर हमारी पैनी नज़र रहती है, लेकिन जहां तक लोकतंत्र की बात कह रहे हैं आप कि पाकिस्तान में लोकतंत्र लचीला हो रहा है, उसमें कमजोरी आ रहा है, उसकी ताकतों को कमजोर किया जा रहा है। लोकतंत्र और पाकिस्तान दोनों साथ साथ में नहीं जाते।
Hard to argue with that. We rarely use Pakistan and democracy in the same sentence. When we do, it is to say that Pakistan is not a democracy. But on a serious note, what does all of this mean for India? Munir's elevation and his speech, what does it mean? Mainly two things. One, his strategy remains unchanged. Even as Army Chief, Asim Munir was a warmonger. You may remember his comments on Kashmir in April this year. He called Kashmir Pakistan's jugular vein. And days later, the Pahalgam attack happened. Clearly, that warmongering approach has not changed. His first instinct was to warn and threaten India. That's the first thing to note. Secondly, Asim Munir is not your typical Pakistani general. He's not happy holding the remote control. He wants to be seen holding it. He wants the country and the world to know his power. And that makes him dangerous. Look at his moves in the last 4 years. In 2022, he ousted Imran Khan. In 2023, he jailed Imran Khan with hundreds of cases. In 2024, he rigged an election to install his loyalists. In 2025, he triggered a conflict with India. And the same year, he became Supreme Commander. So in 4 years, Asim Munir has gone from kingmaker to king. He is clearly ambitious and dangerous. And from all accounts, he is also radical and reckless. This man has his fingers on Pakistan's nuclear arsenal. It's not just a worry for India, it should be a worry for the whole world. Now let's talk about the rising tensions in East Asia. Yesterday we told you about a dangerous face-off. Jets from China and Japan came close to starting a conflict. It happened over the weekend. Chinese jets locked onto Japanese warplanes in the skies. Today there was another provocation. This time near South Korea. Chinese and Russian warplanes flew close to South Korea's airspace. South Korea scrambled its jets. Thankfully, there was no escalation. Observers say both events are linked to Taiwan. China has been asserting itself in the region. This was after Japan made a declaration last month. Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi said if China attacks Taiwan, Japan will mobilize its military. And since then, Beijing has launched a pressure campaign against Tokyo. Now it appears that the dispute is getting bigger and South Korea could be dragged in.
Asia is on the edge again. There was another face-off in the skies, this time near South Korea. 9 military aircraft from China and Russia approached South Korea's air defense zone. 7 of them were Russian. two were Chinese. Together, they flew near South Korea's east and south coasts. They didn't enter Korean airspace, but they came too close, and they didn't identify themselves, so South Korea scrambled its fighter jets. It was a tactical move and a clear warning. This wasn't an isolated event. Over the weekend, there was a similar incident near Japan. Chinese jets locked radar on Japanese fighter planes over disputed waters. The Chinese pilots were just one step away from firing at Japan's warplanes. All they had to do was pull the trigger. It wasn't surveillance, it's military signaling.
Radar lock-on was a dangerous act exceeding the scope necessary for the safe flight of aircraft, and it is extremely regrettable that such an incident occurred. We strongly protested to the Chinese side, and we have sternly demanded that it not recur. We will respond calmly and resolutely.
All this is linked to the row over Taiwan. Last month, Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi had made a bold statement. She said, "If China invades Taiwan, Japan could respond with force." For Beijing, that was a red line. Since then, it has been pushing back. Airspace violations, radar locks, joint patrols with Russian bombers, and now a flyover near South Korea. The message is spreading across the region. South Korea sees this and worries. So does Japan. But not just because of China. It's also because of Washington, specifically Donald Trump's diplomacy. His new national security strategy is causing concern. It barely mentions North Korea. It downplays China. And it doesn't strongly call out Russia either. Instead, it attacks allies. It talks about defending American culture and tells partners, like Japan and South Korea, to spend more on defense. The tone has changed. So has the trust. In Tokyo, leaders are frustrated. They expected support, but got silence. Trump has made no statement after the radar lock incident. There was no condemnation from Washington. Instead, the U.S. just called for restraint. Japan now feels it's being left to defend itself. So does South Korea. This is the bigger picture. China and Russia are moving in. They're flying joint missions, testing airspace boundaries, and showing force without firing a shot. And the region is responding, with scrambled jets, tighter surveillance, and urgent calls for diplomacy. There's tension in the air, and trust is eroding on the ground. Because if Washington stays quiet, East Asia may soon have to speak with its fighter jets, perhaps even more.
Our next story is from Europe. Ukraine has drawn a hard red line. It says it will not give up any land to Russia to end the war. No ceding of territory. This comes as the United States is pushing for a new peace deal. A deal that calls for security guarantees for Ukraine, but also asks Ukraine to give up territory. Territory that Russia controls, also territory that Russia does not control. Washington is calling this a compromise, but Kiev says it's impossible. President Zelensky says international law does not allow ceding land, and his European allies are backing him. So what is Kiev doing now? It is sending a revised peace plan to Washington, a plan that restates Ukraine's position. Here's a report.
The Ukraine war is now close to 4 years old. Yet one question keeps returning to every negotiation table. How do you end it without redrawing Ukraine's borders? That question is driving a new round of diplomacy this week. And it is why President Volodymyr Zelensky is preparing to send the United States a revised peace plan. It's a plan Kiev hopes will rebalance Washington's latest proposal. The pace has been intense. Zelensky met the leaders of Britain, France and Germany in London on Monday. He then held talks with EU and NATO officials in Brussels. Each meeting focused on the same issue: how to respond to the US plan that many in Kiev and Europe say tilts towards Moscow. Washington's first draft had 28 points. After days of negotiation, it is now down to 20 points.
About no repetition of aggression of Ukraine.
But the key point of disagreement remains unchanged. The draft includes the idea of Ukraine giving up territory that Russia does not currently control. In return, Ukraine would receive security guarantees, but those guarantees would fall short of a NATO membership. Zelensky made it clear that for Kiev, that remains unacceptable.
Are we considering giving up any territory? We have no legal right to do so. According to Ukrainian law, our constitution, and international law, we have no moral right to do so either. Russia is insisting that we give up territory, but we definitely do not want to give anything up. That is what we are fighting for, as you well know. The Americans are looking for a compromise today, to be frank.
Zelensky says two questions still block progress: territory and security guarantees. He wants assurances about how the US and Europe would respond to any future Russian aggression. Kiev says it has not received a clear answer. European leaders are trying to strengthen Kiev's position. They say sovereignty must be protected and that Ukraine's long-term security must be guaranteed. Some want frozen Russian assets used to support Kiev. But this diplomacy is unfolding at a time of crisis in Ukraine. Russian strikes have intensified in recent days. Its energy infrastructure has been hit, and cities have faced long power cuts. Amid this, Kiev will now send its revised peace plan to Washington. It will outline Ukraine's position on territory and repeat that no land can be ceded to Russia. The plan will also reflect the discussions that Zelensky held in London and Brussels. What happens next will depend on President Donald Trump's administration. He has accused Zelensky of not studying his original plan. Those remarks have added pressure to an already difficult negotiation. The coming days will show whether these positions can be brought together, or whether the core disagreements will remain exactly where they are.
Picture this. It's almost midnight. Your ring light is dying. Your phone is begging for storage. You have reshot a 12-second clip so many times that you're questioning your life choices, and yet tomorrow morning you will be back at it. This is the picture of India's creator economy. It's a digital gold rush where 4 million people are chasing fame through a 6-inch screen. But how many really walk away with money? How big is this creator economy, and what are the platforms earning from it? It's a fascinating story. It began in the 2010s. Back then, being a content creator was basically code for being unemployed. This is how a YouTuber lied to their relatives about their job. But today it's a $1.5 billion industry. It influences $350 billion in consumer spending. By the year 2030, that number could go up to $1 trillion, a trillion with a T. The numbers are unambiguous. Creators are not just entertainers anymore. They're India's new age sales force, the new culture shapers, the trendsetters, and in some cases, mini media companies. So how many creators are we talking about? Anywhere between 2 to 2.5 million, 2 million to 2.5 million. These are active digital creators. These are people who post regularly and who have more than 1,000 followers. If you add those who post scarcely, the number goes up to 4 million. That could be the population of a small nation trying to go viral every single minute. And this number is growing every year by 20%. That's the average growth, 20%. It's thanks to cheap data and the rise of short videos. But here's the part that everyone wants to know. Who makes the money and how much do they make? And here's the plot twist. Only 8 to 10% of creators in India make meaningful money. Let that sink in. Out of 2 million active creators, only 2 to 2.5 lakh consistently earn, either through ads or brand deals or subscriptions or courses. What about the rest? Well, they earn small, irregular amounts, mostly under 15 to 20,000 rupees a month from content. So a staggering 88% of creators do not rely on social media as their primary source of income. Now let's look at where this money is coming from. The first source is sponsored content. More than 75% creators say that Instagram brand deals are their #1 source of money. And you can see why. If you're a nano creator, a small creator, you will make up to 5,000 rupees for every post. For micro, it's around 80,000 rupees. Macro, up to 5 lakh rupees. And e-commerce alone spends 700 to 800 crore rupees on creators every year. The second source is YouTube ads. You get paid for every 1,000 views. Depending on the subject, you get anywhere between 30 and 250 rupees. You earn 55% of the ad and subscription revenue, and YouTube Shorts is the rising star. You get revenue share, plus huge audience, plus consistent income. The third source of income is subscriptions. It is still a niche sector, but it is catching up. And the fourth is courses, workshops, and brands, and this is where the real money lies. So creators are launching brands from beauty and apparel to nutrition, because they must evolve. And this is the harshest truth. An average creator career is 3 to 4 years. After that, trends die, engagement drops, platforms push for new faces, and burnout kills the momentum. 62% of creators have reported burnout. What makes it worse is the unpredictability of algorithms and the confusing monetization rules. And yet, this space is booming. It is drawing more and more people. And if you really want to understand India's creator economy, forget the creators for a moment. Follow the money, because the money leads to one place. The social media platforms, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Snapchat, they are the real winners here. Look at Meta's India revenue last year. It was 22,730 crore rupees. That's around $2.7 billion. This is what Meta made in India. This is a 15-fold increase since 2021. And then there's YouTube. YouTube says it added 16,000 crore rupees to India's GDP last year. That's around $1.78 billion. But how much did YouTube add to its own revenue from India? 14,300 crore rupees. That's $1.6 billion. So content creators may be driving the growth, but it's the platforms that are pocketing the real gains. So should you become a creator? Well, absolutely, if you understand the rules. Do not quit your job immediately, though. Start content creation as a side hustle. See how it works for you. Do remember that to make it viable, a viable source of income, you will have to work hard. You will have to pick a niche. Generic creators drown, specific creators scale. Also, think like a business from day one. You're not just making videos, you're building an asset. You must understand everything from sales to marketing. You must have a clear view of who your audience will be. Because in the end, this is not just about views or virality or your reel hitting 1 million. This is about something bigger. The creator economy is not a lottery, it's a long game. If you play it well, the $1 trillion future is waiting for you. Our next story is from Hollywood. It's a story about a studio everyone wants to own, it seems. Yesterday, we told you about Netflix making an offer to buy Warner Brothers. Today, that saga has taken a new turn. Paramount has made a hostile bid. Paramount is the company that owns CBS and Paramount Pictures. It has offered more than $108 billion. It wants to buy all of Warner Brothers Discovery. But the surprise is who is backing this bid. Jared Kushner is helping fund it. Jared Kushner is the son-in-law of US President Donald Trump. His investment fund has joined the offer. So have investors from Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Abu Dhabi. All of this comes as President Trump says he will personally review the Netflix deal. Here's a report.
Hollywood loves a twist. But this time, the twist is real. A legendary studio, 2 global giants, and a bid that arrives with new names in the footnotes. Warner Brothers Discovery is now the prize everyone wants. The chain of events began last week. Netflix stunned the industry. It reached an agreement to buy the Warner Brothers studio and its streaming arm. Its offer valued those assets at about $82.7 billion, including debt. That deal sidelined Paramount Skydance. Paramount had been courting Warner Brothers for months. It had placed multiple offers. Each one was rejected. Then came the turning point. Warner Brothers chose Netflix as its preferred buyer. And Paramount changed strategy. A friendly deal was no longer possible, so Paramount went hostile. On Monday, Paramount launched a tender offer. It did not go through management. It went straight to shareholders. Paramount's offer valued the company at over $108 billion. It sought control of the entire company. This includes the traditional cable networks like CNN, TNT, and TBS. But Paramount's paperwork revealed something else. A new financier, Jared Kushner. Regulatory filings confirmed that Kushner's private equity fund, Affinity Partners, is part of the funding group behind the Paramount offer. Other investors include the Saudi Public Investment Fund, the Qatar Investment Authority, and Abu Dhabi's Limad Holding Company. Filings say these investors have agreed to forego governance rights and board seats. This disclosure has drawn particular scrutiny given the political context. Kushner is the son-in-law of President Donald Trump. Trump has said he will review the Netflix Warner Brothers proposal. This creates an unusual situation. The president weighing in on a deal that involves financing from his son-in-law's fund. Ethics groups reportedly say the arrangement raises questions about whether the president's decisions might affect a bid that involves a close family member. Trump says he has not spoken to Kushner about the issue. Both bids now move into a dense regulatory process. Officials will study how each deal could change competition. What will be the impact on advertisers and distributors, and how the deals might influence prices for viewers? The stakes are high. Warner Brothers is not an ordinary company. It carries a century of film and television history. It owns Casablanca, Looney Tunes, Friends, Harry Potter, among others. Its HBO division has shaped global television for decades. Netflix wants these assets to strengthen its catalog. It sees the Warner Brothers studio as a way to protect its lead in the streaming market. Paramount sees them as the foundation of a larger media group. Neither side has won so far. No outcome is assured. Hollywood is watching the story unfold, but the final act has not been written yet.
If you have jogged in parks or joined a gym, you may have noticed this. People come, they stretch, but the real workout often does not start until they start looking down at their wrists. Do you know why? Because a run is not a run, an exercise is not an exercise until your smart watch or your smart ring or your fitness band starts tracking it by the second. It's almost an obsession for people who use these gadgets, and their numbers are growing. So tonight we have a question. Is that band on your hand helping you or is it making you more anxious? First, look at how big the trend is. This is the global wearable tech industry. It has expanded in the last 1 decade. It includes smartwatches, fitness bands, smart rings, AR glasses, and health monitors. In 2025, it was estimated at around $84 billion. $84 billion this year. Smartwatches obviously dominate the market. They command around 50% of the market share. And what do people use them for? The primary use is health and fitness tracking, real-time metrics for steps, tracking your heart rate, monitoring your sleep, or if you're an athlete, then looking at your stats. For some, it's also about convenience, say notifications or calls or even music. It helps reduce your dependency on the phone. But sometimes it gets out of hand. People track their steps by the minute. If they don't hit 10,000, they start panicking. Many track their sleep schedule to the dot. In fact, they start losing sleep over tracking their sleep timings. Talk about irony. In fact, this is so prevalent that there's even a word for it. Orthosomnia. That's insomnia caused by worrying about lack of sleep. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most smartwatches cannot tell you the precise details about your health. Not your exact pace, not your exact calorie burn, not your exact stress levels, and not your exact sleep quality. And that is because these are consumer gadgets, they are not medical devices. Sometimes the GPS drifts, sometimes the strap shifts. What they offer is not accuracy, it's a baseline, a personal graph of how you normally behave. But the human brain does not operate on baselines, it operates on panic. And companies know this. Most wearables now come with gamification, streaks, badges, rewards, challenges. Some brands even let you redeem fitness points. And all of this creates what doctors call the worried well. It's a term for people who feel healthy but still believe that something is wrong with them. And why do they believe this? Because of a statistic on their device. These wearables were meant to empower them. Instead, they became medical anxiety machines. And a typical cycle often unfolds like this. The watch shows a number, the number looks strange, you worry, your heart rate rises, the watch detects the rise, it warns you again, and now you're really worried. It's like a loop that you cannot escape until you take off that watch, which you often don't. Now, to be fair, it's not all dystopia and anxiety spirals. Wearables do save lives too. People have received alerts for abnormal heart rhythms. Elderly parents have triggered fall detection. Runners stuck in remote areas have been rescued because of GPS. And for many people, these devices spark positive changes. Some people start sleeping earlier. Many complete a basic number of steps every day. But as with all things in the internet age, more is not always better. Because here's the thing. We wear these devices to take control of our body, our habits, our life. But when a device begins dictating those choices, that control shifts from you to the machine. Many of us wake up and ask the watch, how do we feel? Maybe that's the real question tonight. When did we outsource our own body to a gadget? When did we stop trusting how we feel and start trusting what a screen says about how we feel? Technology was supposed to calm us. It may be doing the opposite. So the next time you go for that morning run or wake up after a night's sleep or feel like your heart is racing, try this once before you check the watch or the ring. Check with yourself. Your body gives you signals long before your smartwatch starts buzzing. Listen to it. Are you searching for your next binge watch? Well, here it is, except you won't find it in any top 10 list. Netflix versus Paramount. They're fighting to swallow Warner Brothers whole. Netflix won round one, but Paramount has returned like a scorned ex with a hostile takeover bid that is shaking Hollywood. This is not entertainment, this is Hollywood civil war, and the ending is not written yet. But the internet has already exploded with memes. Take a look. Now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. A spacecraft carrying NASA and Russian astronauts returns to Earth. Santa firefighters deliver gifts to a hospital in Athens, and nearly 2,400 golden retrievers gather in a park in Argentina's Buenos Aires to break a world record. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1979, smallpox was officially eradicated. In 1967, the World Health Organization undertook a worldwide effort to prevent any outbreaks. By the mid-70s, smallpox was only present in the Horn of Africa and the Indian subcontinent. The last naturally occurring case was in Somalia in 1977. Smallpox is the only human disease that has been eradicated till date. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
They promised glory. They delivered fear. They shape nations. They scar generations. From brutal purges to propaganda machines, from stolen power to violent falls from the throne. Welcome to The Dictator, a series that strips away the myth and then exposes the men behind the tyranny. History remembers their power. Firstpost reveals their truth.